We've known each other for a little while. I think we were introduced by the guy at Reply.io
Yeah,
who,
Lee Gladish.
and he said, thanks to Lee, he said, you need to look at the copy on your website. And I thought to myself, you know what, he's absolutely right. I've done it myself. And whilst I have a good understanding of my product, it's not always, what should I say, Queen's English. In fact, it probably only makes sense to me because I'm the developer of the product. I'm the person well, I didn't develop it, but I had the idea and I got the developer in. And, I don't think those are the best people to write copy, are they? What do you think?
I think there's two different sides to it. I think that's a great part because you do know it inside. You've got that problem, as you've highlighted, where you're really close to the product. And you have that problem there where you expect everybody to know the things that you take for granted, to know all the jargon, stuff like that, which makes it really difficult when you're presenting it. On the other hand, you can have somebody just come in, and if they don't have that, they need to have that knowledge of your product still. They just get to have it with that new perspective. I remember talking about a copywriter, in a copywriting book where they were talking about with tobacco, and obviously I'm not a fan of tobacco, but not getting into that. But they noticed that in the tobacco factory they had this specific rolling process.
Rolling.
Yeah.
Back year rolling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
something like that. And they said, oh, right, how does that work? And it's to the owner of the factory, it's like, oh yeah, that's just something that everybody does. It's a boring process. We do it 1 million times a day. So what? But they were able to use that process because people who were buying the product didn't know about that. To them, that was something exciting. That was something.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
If you get where I'm coming from,
yeah, I do. Yeah, because you're looking at it from a different angle.
Yeah, you've got it, and being able to look at it from a different angle. I remember working though on your site. What I particularly liked is you were the one who introduced me to Ryan Levesque's Ask method.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And you'd already done that. I believe in the planning of the product.
Which I love, Ryan stuff. Yeah.
And that's essentially what that Ask method is getting to know what your customer needs, what they care about, what's important to them. And that, whether you're writing a service page, a landing page, or an email, knowing what's important to them is everything.
So I guess the results of my survey, Ryan's book is called Ask, and it helps, just for those people that don't know, it helps people to build products that customers want. And it does it by helping you ask a series of questions which lead to a design for products. Now, when I gave you the answers, did that help? That must have helped you quite significantly to write the copy for the website, yeah?
Absolutely, in two parts. The first being the specifics of what they were looking for from the product.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it was obviously tailored to that, so that was great.
Sure, yeah.
But also the specific language they used about those problems.
Yeah.
You might use a different problem. You've created this great product that accomplishes something that you don't realize that what they really wanted for is something completely different, or they describe it in a different way.
Yeah.
And having their language is a million times better than anything that a copywriter can come up by themselves.
Yeah.
That's tempting. You know, a lot of people get into copywriting wanting to be wordsmiths or creative writers. And there's totally room for creativity in copywriting. But once you start letting, I've got this wonderful headline that's fantastic. If it isn't in the language that they're speaking, if it's not using the words that they use, then it's just showing off. It doesn't do any good.
So getting onto email then, and cold email specifically, it must be one of the hardest jobs for a copywriter, putting a cold email together. I mean, you're knocking on the door of someone's inbox who's never heard of you before. You're getting accused of sending unsolicited emails and spam, and it's not relevant to me, and all this kind of stuff. So, what's going on? I mean, is there a way through this? How do you make an impression? How do you cut through all that clutter? How do you make impact these days? What's happening?
Well, you picked up on something very important. You said the reputation is shocking. You know, when I first talked to somebody about writing cold email, they're like, "Oh, so you mean spam?"
Yeah.
You know, and that's what springs to everybody's mind. The latest stats that I saw, something like 120 emails every day the average person gets. And I don't know what your inbox is like. Mine's relatively well guarded,
It's
but
probably not a million miles away from that. I use SaneLater to help me identify emails that
right.
are of importance to me, but I check everything.
Yeah, yeah. And where you start, well, first of all, looking at spam, it's working on massive scale.
Yeah.
That's how spammers work. I was reading that the reply rate for spam is something like 0.00008%. So 1 to, I think it's 1.25 million emails they send to get one response.
Wow.
But because they're pumping out millions and millions,
Yeah.
that's enough for them to make a profit. For
Yeah.
most of us, we can't do that.
No,
That's not
no.
scalable. So you don't even want to be like a
No.
spammer. It's, even if it did convert, it's at such small numbers. But on the other hand, once you start getting to a good cold email, well, first of all, a rubbish cold email might get something like 1% reply rate. But you
A
picked up on the word.
rubbish one might get 1% reply rate. So if you sent out to 100 people and you got one reply, you'd say that that was rubbish.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say you can get so much better. It's because that, I would expect that from an email which is irrelevant.
Yeah.
You used the word relevant before, and that is the most important part, is looking through the inbox that I've got for one of my old jobs. I've still got the inbox, and most of them are just the same old, same old. They've got nothing to do with me, so I'm not going to click on it.
Okay. Yeah.
I suppose 1% then, actually, looking at the ones that I get, 1%, if I replied to 1% of the emails I get, that'll be a miracle.
Yeah.
But I say that as a rubbish rate in that if you do send those tailored, personalized cold emails, then you can easily get something to 20%, 30%. I've seen as high as 50%. That's
Okay. So
rare.
what's the magic then? Come on, tell us what it is.
Right.
What techniques do you use? I mean, I know that obviously the people watching this should just ask you to do it for them. I mean, this is what you do for a living. You're a cold email copywriter, and you're a very good one. But if they wanted to do it themselves,
Yes,
what is
absolutely.
it that they do?
First thing would be to talk to your customers to find out, much following the ask method, right, okay, why have you used my services? Why have you come to me? And then start looking around their pain points, their problems. There's a really popular copywriting formula called PAS, which is problem, agitation, solution. And that's the thing that gets most of us going. You know, we react to pains, we react to problems.
Yeah.
So once you start talking to your customers and identifying what their pain points are, for you might talk to your customers and say, right, what was it like before you started using my service? You know, what was the problem you were trying to solve? It's when you get to that relevance. I mean, for me, I'm coming up to my first wedding anniversary, and I'm trying to work out now what present to buy for the first anniversary.
Yeah. Okay.
If somebody sent
Is
me
it
a
wood?
cold email,
No. What's the what is it? Is it silver? No.
I should probably look it up, shouldn't I?
There's material for it. I think you've got to get that bit right first. But
Oh my
sorry, go
word.
on.
But that's my problem at the moment.
Sure.
It's not a particularly serious one. But I tell you something, if somebody sent me a cold email today that said, here's the perfect present to buy for the first anniversary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care if it wasn't personalized.
No.
It's answering the problem that I've got.
Yeah.
That's not to say stuff like personalization isn't important. It really is. But first and foremost, it's making it relevant to their pains, their problems, and showing that from the start. So you think about a cold email in terms of the very first thing you see, I don't know about you, the subject line.
Yeah, so so it's the from field and it's the subject line, isn't it? That's it. So those are the if you've not got the person through those, then you're not going to get anywhere.
You've lost it.
So I guess the from field, we have had a lot of success in things like instead of it coming from Duncan at emailmovers.com or whatever it is, it comes from Duncan and then the word at and then email movers. So we've edited that friendly from field so that it actually displays as a kind of a bit of branding rather than just an email address. And I've noticed that companies like HubSpot do that as well, and they allow you to edit those fields, which is really important. But then you very quickly move on to the subject line.
One other factor there is using your name. Is using a name, being able to have that personal connection. It's much more likely to have that connection when it is an email from Duncan rather than just email movers. So that's the first step. Is we'll get into what you're trying to achieve with the cold email a bit later, I think. But that first step is that human connection. People don't want to feel that they're a name on the list, even if they are a name on the list.
Sure. They don't want to be. Exactly.
Not email number one, email number two that's being pumped out from an automation software. So you've got to show that. Then when you get to the subject line, there's a real temptation here to try and be clever. When you look up email subject lines, and you'll see quite a few ones, this one leads to high open rates, but a lot of them are, again, trying to trick people. And that's where you get into the problem of you might have a really high open rate. One I saw recently, do not open this email. Curiosity factor through the roof.
Of course.
And I'm sure they had massive open rates. I dread to think what their reply rates were. Because if I'm opening that, I'm almost daring them to give me something valuable. Right, okay, justify that subject line. And I don't know how you can justify that subject line in all seriousness. You really have to weave it in.
So we need to get rid of the gimmicks. We need to get rid of
stuff like using...
It gives you a great open rate, but it doesn't actually do anything at all for your response rate. Okay.
We saw like putting RE and FW at the start recently. All stuff like that. I just think, right, okay, leave it behind. Go for clarity. Again, going back to my example, if somebody sent me in that email about getting that first anniversary present, I wouldn't want them to, if the subject line said, "Oh, you won't believe what's inside," or "awesome solutions for your problems," I'm not interested. If it says anniversary presents for first year, great. Now, most of the time we can't do something like that. It's a little bit too precise.
Of course,
But right, okay, so let's say we've identified another pain point, that you're emailing your customers, prospective customers, and you've spoken to your existing customers and you found out the biggest problem. Right, so email movers, they supply email data, so email lists, that kind of thing. So maybe you've spoken to your existing customers and off the top of my head, they say their problem has been that they've had really rubbish delivery rates from their existing lists. So,
well, I'll tell you what normally, just to put some context in there, what typically happens is that the customers that we work with have got prospect data. However, what they do is they focus on that prospect data for a particular campaign. So it's a data-driven campaign that they're targeting certain prospects. And then the campaign starts to generate responses, but then the responses drop off because they've got to the end of the data. And so they need to go off and get data again. And they're constantly in this situation where they're going in ups and downs. Their whole, I guess, their sales pipeline is up and down because they don't have a steady flow of data coming in all the time. They're just reactive. Oh, we've got no leads, quickly buy some data. Oh, we've got no leads, quickly buy some data. Whereas what we tend to find out is the customers that work best with us are wanting to get a steady flow of data all the time. And then they don't have that massive cliff edge every time. So that seems to be a pain point for our customers specifically, is that cliff edge.
So I would try and incorporate that in that subject line, something like looking for a steady supply of data. And then I'd use a personalization tag for their company name. Sure, you're familiar with that, using personalization tags. And that's
Did you
one of the
personalize the subject lines? Do you go for that?
I do, It's not always, but I find it's something that does get their attention. And it shows that little bit more of interest, that little bit more of research.
So do you remove, sorry to cut you off, but do you remove the word like limited? So if it's email movers limited, a lot of customers' databases have got the company name in, but it's like, do you remove the word limited, or do you just leave it all in, or what?
I really would try to. It depends on how...
Because it just looks...
You're looking at that sort of that 80-20 rule of, if you can get rid of it. I'd rather have email movers limited than nothing at all. Because if I see steady flow of data for your company, then I'm thinking, right, they really are just blasting this
Yeah.
out to everybody.
And you can do it in an Excel spreadsheet. It is possible. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's say that you've got that subject line. It's relevant to your target audience. You've personalized it. We found that. So we did some analysis. We found that 47 characters is the maximum number of characters that we should be using in subject lines, because 50% of our emails are now opened on a mobile device.
Yeah.
And any further than 47 characters and it will be cut off. Have you come across that?
Yeah, definitely. You've got such a short space now to make it count. I try and fit it into a smaller space as possible. I usually think in terms of 3 to 5 words if I can. Try and trim it down. If you can lead with that personalization, sometimes that's a way of getting around it. So at least you're getting their eyeball that, oh, right, okay, we're drawn to when we see our name, our company name. Shorter is better.
Okay.
But it's still been enough to give them a clear reason to open the email. You've got to give them a motivation to stand out from those other 120 emails.
What about emoticons? Do you put emoticons into subject lines? I've read a few articles where people have said that they do increase it. I've tried it. They do. I have seen open rates increase. I don't know about the quality of the open though. What have you found?
What I found is it does depend on the audience. If I'm sending it to a very professional B2B organization and I've got a bunch of smiley faces and explosions, then it might get attention, but it might be the wrong sort of attention. It's one of those cases where I would test it, and I do highly encourage, again, this will come out through every aspect of the email, is testing it. See what works for you, for your companies, for your customers. But I'd certainly would try using emojis.
So now we've got into, let's say that we go into the body of the email now. So it's, are you a dear John, or a dear Mr. Paul, or a higher Pete, or, how informal, how formal are you?
First of all, just before you get to that body line, there's another part where if you look at your emails, I'm looking at my emails in Gmail.
Are you going to look at the preview? Okay. Yeah. Why did I miss that? Yeah, of course.
Well, most people don't think about it, which is one of the reasons why I noticed most cold emails has something like, you see a great subject line, a great from name, and then the first preview is like, click here to enable images, or something like that, where it's clearly not giving me anything else. So having that first line be something, again, to draw their attention.
Have you seen that a lot of systems don't actually allow you to put a preview in? I mean, I know that MailChimp does, but there's quite a few systems out there that don't actually allow you to. I don't know if you've ever received an email from Apple, but their emails don't have a preview in them. They don't have that. They don't have those first couple of lines. It's always HTML. And there's a big header tag, and I'm thinking to myself, why do Apple do that? Why don't they put in?
Well, you think Apple would work out something a bit better. I think they've got the budget for it.
So they don't care about it. But anyway, so you've done your header, and now we're into the body. So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are there.
My normal one is hi, first name.
Yeah.
But again, I hasten to add, test it. What's right for your audience. I know my father. If he receives anything in the mail, an email that says hi, first name, he's like, who are they?
How dare they?
To call me by my first name. That's his generation. Yeah. It's an instant put off. You won't even read the rest of the mail or the thing.
Wow.
So again,
so for B2B, do you think that do you think senior decision makers should be addressed dear Mr. Paul, or what do you think? I mean,
I honestly think that for 99% of people it is going to be hi, first name. We've got to that age where email's that little bit more personal for the generation that's grown up using it.
Yeah.
And senior decision makers, it still might not be there, but again, from my personal experience with people in that, most of them, I think my dad's the exception, thankfully. It's still something to bear in mind, to think, right, how am I addressing them? How are they used to being addressed?
Yeah.
And hi, first name seems to do the job well enough for me.
Okay. So what about a headline? Do you put a headline into the email right at the beginning, or do you just go straight into it? I mean, do you put a headline above the hi, dear Paul, or something like that, or do you just go straight into the email?
I tend to go straight into it. I tend to use plain text for a start more than HTML. It's one of the first things that we spot is from the spammers is like, all right,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
HTML with a ton of images, I can't even
Yeah,
see
yeah, can't be
anything.
bothered
So
with that. And it
exactly,
impacts delivery as well, of course. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I've heard. What I would find then is you do want to open with a headline in the sense of you want something that grabs their attention.
Do you?
There-
Okay.
There's something in copywriting, there's principle, sorry, in copywriting that is the purpose of the first line is to get them to read the second line. The purpose of the
Right.
second line is to get them to read the third line. So much like the subject
Oh,
line gets them to
okay.
open
Makes
the
sense.
email,
Hmm.
the first line should be something that gets them to read the next line.
Right.
I've seen people with their cold emails, one I was working with, and they insisted on opening with an introduction.
Yeah.
You know, hi, my name is Daniel, and I do this and I do that.
Yeah.
And it did have one of the lowest reply rates I've seen, because I think then that people are,
Yeah.
if they've clicked to open it and they're like, oh, I don't care.
Mm.
So again, we're coming back to their pain points. Usually I find it a good way to do it is with a question
Yeah.
or with a statement. So something like, quick question, how are you dealing with email data? Or how are you dealing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
your supplier
Yeah.
data?
Mm.
Something that will give them pause, usually in one line, if I can, one sentence, one line,
Yeah.
something that'll make them think, something that'll make them give you the time of day then
Yeah.
moving
Yeah.
on. So
Okay, so you've kind of used a sequence there, or you've used a system or a process to get them to continue reading
yeah,
by leaving or by leading them on each sentence, each paragraph. So, what about things like bullet points and length of message, that kind of thing? Where do you stand on that?
for me, again, it's try and keep the message as short as possible.
Okay.
It's, again, most people, yeah, they live in their inbox, but they're busy people, you
Yeah.
know, and
Mhm.
even if a message seems super relevant, if it looks like it's going to take me 10 minutes to read it, even if I'm interested, I'll save it for later,
Yeah.
which is the kiss of death for an email. Then it's like,
Yeah.
I can't think of actually any emails where I've gone, oh yeah, we'll go back and read that. I've got hundreds of emails there waiting to be read, and
Yeah.
they'll end up just getting deleted one day.
Yeah.
So the one reason I'm hesitating is I recently saw another cold email which sort of broke these rules in that it was quite a long email with 4 different points there. It's like, right, okay, dealing with this problem, here are several other problems and solutions, and it'd have problem 1 solution, problem 2 solution, and it went on for a couple of pages. But I read it because it was something that was really relevant to me, and I had the time then. I think though that's the exception rather than the rule. You've got to think about what your customer wants and what you want from the email, obviously,
Yeah.
and how you can get that across in as small a space as possible.
Mm.
So again, quick question, how are you dealing with your supply of data? Do you have a consistent supply of data for
Yeah.
your email marketing?
Question mark. Yeah.
Yep. And then it's like most companies I speak to, and then another bit of personalization I probably use, I try and drop in names that were similar to that company, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
most companies in your industry,
That they
such
might
as
recognize. Yeah.
A, B,
Making it
and
more
C,
relevant. Yeah.
exactly. People look at that
Mhm.
and think, oh, he's talking about companies just like mine. This
Yeah.
isn't just totally irrelevant.
Oh, that's a great one. I like that.
Yeah. So then I'll go into that, and I would try and have one key point for the email. It's
Yeah.
like, right, okay,
Yeah.
how are you
Yeah.
doing with supply data? We've helped companies like A, B, and C have consistent supply data
Yeah.
and build their sales pipeline by
Mm.
2,000,000%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
we've got that right. Okay. And then you get into, that's where I'd leave it. I'll
Yeah.
just go in then now to a conclusion, a CTA.
Signature. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
signatures are great, but a CTA as well, a call to action.
So you
What
do
do you
want
want
to.
them to
Yeah.
do?
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay. So
so
for more information, call me here or whatever.
yeah, but
Mm.
I'd go a step further than that. I'd give them a reason to call me. For more information, call me. Yeah, okay, they might if they were really
Oh, right.
interested in it.
Yeah.
I would look at something that's trying to start a conversation. So I might say again something like, what percentage, if you don't mind me asking, what percentage of your leads are coming through your emails at the moment, or something like that,
Mm.
or how
Mm.
many of your leads are converting? Just get them a question. It's not for the hard sell. Definitely
Yeah.
not the hard sell. I would not go in for myself or for anybody going, you can buy a
Yeah.
consistent package
That's
at this
interesting.
price.
Yeah.
It's, you've got a cold email. The problem still is it's cold.
Yeah.
You know, there's not been trust built up. There's not
So
been a
you want to ask
relationship
a
built up.
question that gets them to reply.
If I get a
So we get
reply,
yeah.
I've won. You know, it's
Okay.
well,
Yeah. Yeah.
not win lose, but you want it to be a
No, I know what
win-win.
you're saying. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Mm.
to get engagement. Anything that I can use. A lot of people nowadays go for could we meet up for 15 minutes for a coffee or something like that?
Yeah. Mm.
And that can work. It can work well. I still find people are very guarded of their time. You know,
Mm.
it's like, right, this person has just emailed me. I've never heard of him. I've never heard of their company. Okay, it looks relevant to me, but there's that friction there of,
Yeah.
do I really want to book a 15-minute window into my already busy day? I've got a
Yeah.
million things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I find if you can just anything to get that conversation carrying on, conversational marketing, as they talk about, is right.
Yeah.
Engage with them, and I find that much more beneficial.
So just to, I guess, conclude this bit of it, we have used sequences, and reply.io is a great little sequential autoresponder for that. How many emails would you put into a sequence, do you think, before you call it a day?
That's a tough question. There's so many different stats out there. I personally go around the 4 mark. It's like
Really?
1, 2, 3, 4. But I'd add the proviso there that it wouldn't just be emails I'd be trying to encourage my client or myself to get in touch with. You talk about multi-channel campaigns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, in all honesty, usually the cold email wouldn't be my ideal first step.
Right.
My first step would be looking them up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Or so, right, okay, they've seen that I've viewed their profile, or they've seen that I've commented on one of their posts or liked one of their posts. And even if you don't shout, here I am, look at me, but it's just enough to be like, oh, an email from Duncan or an email from Daniel. I recognize that name somewhere. And the same thing, okay, so
that's
send that
really
cold
good.
email.
Yeah.
And then they may have got that cold email, they may not have responded straight away, and then maybe do another touch on social media, something like that.
We do exactly that. We will connect to people on LinkedIn, and then we will drop them an email, because I don't know if you remember MySpace, but sometimes platforms don't stay around forever for whatever reasons. Companies decide to change them or adapt them, and suddenly they turn off half the features. You can't see who your connections are anymore, or whatever. You can't send messages in LinkedIn any longer. So we do like to have connections and I suppose conversations going on email as well. Okay, so you'd have about 4. I remember coming across an article about Obama's campaign for the presidential.
Yes,
Have you come across that, where he used
I remember seeing that.
He used over 900 messages in his sequence to get, and he said in the book, it said, I didn't want to have donors who'd give me $1 million. I wanted to have, I don't want to have just a few donors that would give me tens of millions of dollars. I wanted to have millions or tens of millions of donors that would give me $1. And he said that was the sequence. If you gave $1, you would be changed and you'd get a different set of emails. If you then gave another $1, you'd get another, oh, thanks so much. You know, this is Obama. I'm just saying thanks for that $1 you gave us. And, you know, we're going to change America, you know. I mean, and it got him in.
It worked well. And it's a great campaign. What that proviso there is as well, talking about the sequences and a cold email one.
Yeah.
Once you start getting those responses, I would try and get them into a regular email nurturing sequence. Even if they reply and say, look, we're really happy with our supply of data at the moment. We're really happy with our copywriting at the moment. We don't need anybody else. Great, fine. Do you mind me asking what company you are using at the moment? How are they working out for you? What makes them so good? You know, genuine conversation, following it on, and then just keep nurturing them as it goes on. But for that initial campaign, I mean, I've seen quite a few people go to 8. That seems to be quite a common number I see.
Really? Okay.
I just think there's so much risk nowadays of people getting annoyed. So I think
and then you
across multiple channels.
Damage your reputation, don't you? Yeah, absolutely.
And reputations do go around, you know, it's how you see it.
Of course they do,
The news spreads. And what might have been a customer, if you emailed them a couple of times and then left them, and then they come back to it, or they see you on social media in a year's time and there's just something in their mind, then you can still win that customer. You can still have them join in to come into your email sequences another way. But it's
okay. Well, I really appreciate the chat that we've had. what I'm going to do is I'm going to just summarize
Sure.
what we've said. Now, therefore, just casting my mind back, you're a copywriter. You've been doing lots of cold emails, or you've been helping clients write lots of cold emails. We were introduced by the guys at reply.io.
Yeah.
And what you've said here is that your subject line, we've got to be getting some personalization into the subject line.
Yeah.
Also, we've got to be able to make the email short, make it snappy. It's okay to say, hi, Paul, that kind of stuff. It's okay to use bullet points, but it does
Yeah.
need to be short, snappy. It's got to be text email as well.
Highly recommended, yeah.
We've got to have, if we're doing sequential autoresponders, we're looking at about 4 emails in the sequence so that we don't have any brand damage or anything like
That'll
that.
be my personal preference, yeah.
Also, you mentioned the preview. What else? Am I missing anything else that you've been telling us about in this?
And it's something not so much that I've already said, but hearing you summarize it came back, is that we're talking about making relevancy is the key, number one thing.
Of
make
course,
it relevant.
Yeah. How could I miss that? Yeah.
And it's the research in that. Now, there's this sort of sliding scale where if you've got a list of 1,000 people, researching all of them is going to be tricky. Sending a highly personalized email. And when I talk about personalization, just quickly, is that we talk about high first name jobs as personalization.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be a little bit more. You know, if you had a tailored suit, you wouldn't call it a tailored suit just because it had your name written on the back of the shirt. You'd want it to fit. You want it to be right for you. So having that attitude towards it as much as you can, you know, with 1,000 people, it's going to be tricky.
Yeah. But when you get down to low hundreds, you can be
I know a copywriter who did really well with having 90% of the email the same, but the first couple of lines would be completely personalized. That would be a personalization segment, and they'd go onto their website, they would have a look at something, have a look at the news, have a look at what they were doing, their latest announcements. And so for each of the people in their list, it would be, hi Duncan, hi Daniel, I see what you're doing there at Email Movers, really like your latest feature on this. And it was just something enough there, they'd be like, right, okay, they've looked at my site for more than 5 seconds. And that's what everybody wants to feel, is that you've looked at them, you've researched them.
They're special.
Exactly. Everybody wants to be special.
Okay, so now if somebody wanted to get into contact with you, Daniel, let's say that they wanted to just get you to do the copy for their emails, how would they do that? What's the best way of getting into contact with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is through my website, which is danielgrose.co.uk.
Okay.
Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out most of the time there. So Daniel Rose on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And roughly, what would you charge somebody to do a sequence of emails? Is there, do you charge per word, or do you charge for an email, or do you vary your charging per client? How does it work?
Because it does vary so much per client. You'd be looking at, what was it? I usually try and do it for a sequence, because the sequence is important, as you mentioned about following up. Usually put in different things in there. I don't tend to just send the same email 4 times. That's not a sequence for me. And so you'd be looking at, projects start at around £500.
Yeah. You know, that's really interesting, because I was going to say, normally I tell clients to expect around £200 for a good copywriter per email. So if they've got a sequence of 4 emails, you should be looking at between £500 and £800. And that I think is probably about on the money, because that going to take a lot of time. They're going to take a lot of, they're going to take an interest in your company for that kind of money. If you go to Fiverr and get somebody to write you a campaign for $15, they aren't actually going to take all that much time to look at it, and it may not even be done by a certain person who speaks English as their first language. So.
Exactly. Sometimes they might knock out the park, you know, but 99% of the time, what you're paying for with, because I talk about myself as a conversion copywriter, is that somebody who's going to go in, who's going to do the research for you, and then it isn't just that send and go. It's like, right, we've sent it. What were our open rates? What were our reply rates? What kind of response are we getting? Are people replying to say, never email me again? Or are they replying to say, oh, tell me more? You know, which ones are working? And then you optimize it. So the next sequence, you would hope to get higher results. So
Well, that is brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for your time
Oh, you're welcome.
on this.
It's been a pleasure.
And we've explained how people can get a hold of you. And so, yeah, I really do appreciate that. I'm going to get that edited today, and I'm going to try and get that up online. Probably, well, let's see if I can get it done for tomorrow. It'd be great if I could.
Okay. I'll tell you what, I'd like to do then. If it's okay with you, I could put a cheat sheet together or something like that.
Oh, that would be awesome. Wow, look at this guy. He's doing his CTA on me, isn't he? Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
On that.
Make the most of it. Yeah, okay. So let me write that up.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'll have
An
to set it
email,
up.
a cold email cheat sheet would be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And people could, I can get it out onto our website. People could go there, and once they're registered, they could download it. So that would, I'll
sounds
put
good to me.
A link down below. That would be fantastic. Yeah, awesome.
Brilliant. I'll get something done for you then.
Yeah.
It might take me more than one day. But
oh well, yeah, you're going to have to get a move on with that, aren't you? So
well,
whenever you get it to me, and I'll get the video put online for when I get that back from you.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for your time, Doug.
Fantastic.
I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll